I grew up in a house that backed onto a suburban branch line. I didn't need an alarm clock, for each Saturday morning I was woken up by the goods train that rattled past at 8:30 a.m. There weren't many goods trains on a Saturday, but this one always ran, taking empty rolling stock back to the docks at Aramouth, a seaside town that was about 10 miles away. Sometimes, like today, the train was double-headed. My uncle, who worked on the railway, said that this was an efficient way of getting the engines to where they were needed. Saturday passenger services weren't as frequent as the ones in the week. Sometimes I'd go with my mum on one of the trains and spend a few hours spotting at the big station at Menton. You could see all sorts there. But today I was staying at home, but there'd still be plenty to see. One thing you could always be certain of seeing were trains of coal being taken to the power station, and you never quite knew what engines you were going to see pulling those around. Of course, the empty wagons had to be taken back. I loved the clatter and clanking of the trucks. The line could get quite busy with freight on weekdays, and that was a real treat for the school holidays. Two engines would operate the local passenger trains on a Saturday. Today it was the Prairie that we saw earlier and a Pannier. It was ever so much fun watching them run backwards and forwards 3 or 4 times each every day. Every day, Saturdays included, a train ran to Swansea from Arrowmouth. Now, I don't know why, but it always seemed to be made up of blood and custards. They never seemed to mix up the liveries. And there was a good chance that an unusual engine would take the train on a Saturday. Uncle Dave said that the main passenger engines needed maintenance, so a freight engine would sometimes take the train. The best thing about Saturdays were the specials. They'd come from all over. Trains to the holiday camp in Arrowmouth, the racecourse in Menton, or football supporter trains. These were some of the only times you get to see the big engines on our little line. I remember getting very mixed feelings when a train full of Plymouth Argyle supporters passed by, pulled by one of the new warship diesels. I couldn't help but be impressed at how modern it looked, but immediately felt guilty that it wasn't steam. Supporters of teams like Southampton or Portsmouth would sometimes have a merchant navy class loco pulling their train. These beasts always looked impressive, even if they seemed to have to tiptoe along if they were routed our way. Black Fives were quite a common sight, taking trains of supporters for teams from the Midlands and further north. They did a lot of the holiday traffic as well. I always thought that they were wonderful engines, not flashy like the merchant navies, but beautiful and graceful in their own way. Around all of these specials, our own pair of engines on the local trains continued, taking people backwards and forwards, panniers, prairies, iverts sometimes, as well as standards. I got to know them all, and I thought of them as friends. Sometimes one would appear with a short freight of some sort. Tankers were always my favourite. They were heavy when full, and they used to rumble along. I miss those days.